Yeah. Yes.
Yes, yes. So yeah, we'll start.
Once again, can you drop that? Take that face mask. Please. Yeah, we can start now. So should I go ahead and start? Radhakrishna will call you.
బిజీగా ఉన్నాయి దయచేసి హలో
Yeah.
Should I go ahead and start?
1 minute.
Hello.
So should I go ahead and start? How does it go?
Yes.
So I have to introduce myself and start.
Yeah, you can start now.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon all. I am Dr. Sirisha. I am pediatric hematology, oncology and BMT physician working in Rainbow Children's Hospital, Hyderabad, Banjara Hills. Today we are going to discuss about pediatric cancers, awareness about like what is the incidence and what are the common types of cancers, how to recognize them, how to diagnose them, and what are the chances of cure, and what is the difference between pediatric cancer versus adult cancer. So all these things we are going to go ahead and see now in next few minutes, and at the same time we are also going to see what are the challenges we are facing during this COVID time in managing these cancer patients as well as children with blood disorders where they require blood transfusion and all. So we will also look at the challenges what we are facing at the moment. So in between, like if there are any important questions that are coming up, definitely we will go ahead and address, as well as at the end also we can address the questions. So first of all, coming to what is cancer. It's an uncontrolled proliferation of a cell leading to abnormal growth of a particular organ or area, or it is an uncontrolled, in case of blood cancer, it is an uncontrolled proliferation of an immature white cell within the bone marrow that leads to suppression of production of normal cells, and then only immature cells or cancer cells will be there and suppress the normal cells. So this is just a broader general way how we describe the cancer. And if you look at the burden, what is the burden in the world? So every year around 2.5 to 3 lakhs of new cases of pediatric cancers. Being a pediatric cancer specialist, I am going to talk exclusively about pediatric cancers. So if you look at the burden of the pediatric cancers, 2.5 to 3 lakhs new cases of cancers are getting diagnosed every year in the world. Within India, around 45,000 to 50,000 new cases are getting diagnosed every year. So almost 1/6 of the world burden we have in India. And as we know, most of the cancers are for developing countries. Cancer, how it contributes for mortality, if you look at in Western world, it is almost second most common cause of death after your accidents in Western world, whereas in India it is the third most common, that is accidents, and your infections will come into picture first, then comes into picture is your cancer leading to mortality. So what is the difference between cancer in adult versus cancer in child? So that is most important thing what we should know. Majority of the pediatric cancers are curable. That is first and foremost thing we should remember, and we should carry that in our minds with this interaction. So most of the pediatric cancers are curable, and if you look at the difference between adult and pediatric cancer, most of the adult cancers are slow growing, and pediatric cancers are rapid growing in their biology nature, and that is the reason why we don't have screening methods in pediatric cancers compared to adults. In adults, you can do regular screening for certain cancers like breast or cervical cancers and all, and then you can avoid them going into the advanced stage. Whereas in pediatric cancers, being like rapidly evolving, screening methods are not in place. So that is one thing. And other differences are like outcomes. Compared to adult cancers, pediatric cancers have excellent outcome. So most of the pediatric cancers, they are rapidly evolving. They require aggressive protocols, and the outcomes are also very good in these children. So, and if you look at what are the types of cancers in children, most common cancer in child is blood cancer. In general terminology, in our medical language, it is acute leukemia. Within acute leukemia, you have acute lymphoblastic leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia is more common compared to acute myeloid leukemia. So almost 75-80% of the cases are acute lymphoblastic leukemias in pediatric acute leukemias. So, and if after acute leukemias, the other cancers that are common are brain tumors. So around 30 to 35% are acute leukemias, that is blood cancers, followed by brain cancers, that is around 25 to 30%, 20% of them are brain cancers. Following that, there are other solid tumors, other tumors that come into picture. Other solid tumors that are common after brain tumors are your neuroblastoma that comes from nervous tissue, as well as the other cancers like Wilms tumor, which is from kidneys, hepatoblastoma that is from liver, and bone cancers. So a lot of other solid tumors are there. Soft tissue sarcomas from muscle, rhabdomyosarcoma is there. So these are the general cancers what we see in children. So how to recognize these cancers? So we have seen what are the common cancers in children, and then how to recognize them. So if you look at acute leukemias, so that is blood cancer, the common symptom will be unexplained prolonged fevers, and hemoglobin will be low, that is child will look pale. Some bleeding manifestations may be there, and they may experience pains because of rapid expansion of the bone marrow cavity, stretching of the bones. Then they can have pains, they will have difficulty in walking, and they will also have abdominal distension, that is liver and spleen will be enlarged. So all these features, what I'm saying is like definitely can be there. Some of them may or may not be there in acute leukemias, or all of them may be there in acute leukemias. But what I mean to say is like all these features, if they have any one of those features, it's not always acute leukemia. There are several other reasons for unexplained fevers, abdominal distension, walking difficulties. For all these clinical features, there are several other reasons. However, your doctor should be able to identify the symptom what you have fits into acute leukemia or not. So once you get the symptom, and then once doctor suspects, what should be the next step? You have to go ahead and do the complete blood picture, where you will be looking at hemoglobin, blood counts, platelets, and most important thing is peripheral blood smear, where you can make out whether child has abnormal cells or not. So with the abnormal cells in the peripheral smear, with abnormal counts and classical clinical picture, then that is the time where we suggest them to go for confirmatory test, bone marrow test. At times even without going to bone marrow, when you have certain features in the complete blood picture, you will know that it is acute leukemia. But most of the times we go ahead with bone marrow, and then we perform special tests on the bone marrow test called as flow cytometry, genetic analysis, etc. Flow cytometry to know what type of acute leukemia they have, and genetic analysis is how to risk stratify them. So whether they come under high risk or low risk. To know that, we will do the genetic testing and other tests. And there are also how they are responding at the end of the first week and at the end of the first month. So going by all those things, we categorize them into high risk, low risk, based on genetics and their response, and then how they present at the time of initial admission, their blood counts and type of leukemia and all those things will come into picture when they are prognosticating them. So that is how we put them under high risk or low risk, and then we treat accordingly. So if this is for acute leukemia, so how they present, how to diagnose. Whereas if you look at solid tumors, the presentation of solid tumor depends on the location of the tumor and type of the tumor. So if you are looking at CNS tumor, that is brain tumor, so then the symptoms will be headache, vomitings, visual disturbance, walking disturbance, these kind of things. Vision can be double. So those kind of various clinical manifestations can come if the tumor is in the brain. If the tumor is outside, like depending on the location, for example, if it is in the abdomen, then you can have abdominal distension and GI symptoms at times. And whereas if it is in the chest, it can be like a cough, distress, breathlessness. So depending on where it is located within the chest or abdomen, symptoms can vary. So once you notice that there is something different within the body, some abnormal symptoms are there, and then you go and then doctor pick up that there is a tumor, the next step will be to biopsy the tumor. So we have to go ahead and do the biopsy of the tumor to know what type of tumor it is. And once we know that it is certain type of tumor, the next step will be to go ahead and do the staging workup. So first is to know whether it is a benign tumor or malignant tumor. And if it is malignancy, within that malignancy, what type of tumor it is, that we will come to know based on the radiology and histopathology. That is, histopathology means when you take out the piece, you study the specimen under the microscope. So in the histopathology, radiology, clinical presentation, we know that this is this type of tumor. So once we know it is a certain type of tumor, the next step will be to know whether it has spread to different parts or not, or is it like localized tumor or metastatic tumor. So we always want it to be localized tumor so that results will be good, but however we have to go ahead and check whether it has spread to other parts by doing tests called as whole body PET scan and bone marrow test and all these things. Then we'll come to know whether tumor has spread to other parts of the body. And once we know the type of the tumor, stage and everything, then we have to go ahead and do treatment planning. So treatment planning for acute leukemias is different from solid tumors. In acute leukemias, treatment plan will be chemotherapy. There is no role of surgery in these cases. Rarely in acute leukemias, if the CSF, that is if it is positive, then we also use the radiation as another treatment modality. However, majority of the cases they get cured only with chemotherapy. So for acute leukemias, mainstay of treatment is chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is given in the form of tablets and injectables. And within chemotherapy, when we are giving chemotherapy, there are certain side effects. We always explain to parents what are the side effects, when to expect them in the course of the disease, what type of side effects will be there, how to face them, how to prevent certain side effects even before happening, and when despite of like prophylactic medications, certain side effects like vomitings, all those things will come up. So then you have to go ahead and treat them at that time. And other than that, like during chemotherapy, they are prone for infections. We tell them all precautions, how to prevent infections, and when to come and review with us immediately. So all those things we tell the precautions so that we can catch them early and then treat them on time, so that you can avoid complications or risks involved in those problems. So in acute leukemias, if you look at 30 years back and now, for example, if you take acute lymphoblastic leukemia, around 30 years back or so, more than 30 years back, your results were like very poor, say only 20-25% used to get better. But nowadays, with advances in modern chemotherapy and with the good supportive care, that is in terms of good supportive care with antibiotics, with good nutrition, with safe blood products, all these things are being in place, the outcomes have improved to 85% even in developing countries, in certain good centers where all these things will be taken care accordingly. So going by that, even in developing countries, tumors which are well curable in Western countries are we are able to achieve good cure rates even in our country. And if you look at solid tumors, so solid tumors treatment is different. So acute leukemias, it is mainly chemotherapy, and then followed by, after chemotherapy you have to go ahead and do follow-ups and all. Whereas in solid tumors, treatment is different. So in solid tumors, the mainstay of treatment will be surgery. So first you have to go ahead and, in certain tumors you have to go ahead and do the neoadjuvant chemotherapy. That is, once we know this is the type of, what is the type of tumor and this is the stage and all, we explain to parents about the tumor nature, prognosis, treatment protocol. And in certain tumors, like you can't go ahead with this direct surgery, you have to go ahead and give neoadjuvant chemotherapy. That is chemotherapy to reduce the size of the tumor and to control the disease, and then you have to go ahead with the surgical intervention. So outcomes of the tumors mainly depends on how well they are, like you have taken out the tumor. So then after giving chemotherapy, you reduce the bulk, control the disease, do surgery, take out, and then again you have to go ahead and give chemotherapy, which is called as adjuvant chemotherapy, to prevent the disease from to prevent the recurrence, that is disease from recurring again. And you also have to use radiation as modality of treatment in solid tumor based on the stage of the tumor. So to be precise, majority of the acute lymphoblastic leukemias and majority of the solid tumors where they are in the early stage, they are we are able to achieve very good cure rates. So compared to earlier, majority of the pediatric solid tumors as well as in early stage as well as acute lymphoblastic leukemia, they are becoming long-term survivors. So whenever we say, like 5 years survival rate, within 5 years if it is not recurring, the chances of recurrence after 5 years are extremely rare. So after that they lead near normal life. So we have to have good insight into outcomes of pediatric cancers, that pediatric cancers are different from adult cancers. One, in terms of outcomes and their presentation and their biology, and at the same time we also have to remember that they are very well curable, provided we are using we are risk stratifying them, we are doing the appropriate diagnosis and using the proper protocol and giving very good supportive care for all these children. So and now coming to tolerance, many people say, like how do kids tolerate the chemotherapy? So compared to adults, kids, they do tolerate chemotherapy very well. So for few reasons, like as you know, like adults, many of the times they can have comorbidities associated with them, whereas in pediatrics associated comorbidities are less. So going by that, their tolerance will be definitely better, and that is the reason their outcomes are also definitely better. And other than different types of cancers, there, how to recognize them, how to diagnose them, and then how to treat them, we also should discuss today at this point of time, definitely what are the difficulties we are facing during this COVID time. So as we all know, like world is facing this pandemic, and world is struggling with this pandemic. We all know that. Similarly, our cancer patients are also struggling problems related to this pandemic. One is, like, they are not more prone compared to the general population, but they are more prone for complications if they get. So that is the reason, as well as even otherwise, obviously we all want to control it and we all want to prevent it from happening to anyone around us as well as to us. So going by that, we have to take utmost measures, especially for cancer patients who have low immunity. So because they cannot tolerate the infection, so even regular infection which a general population person can clear well, these children cannot clear well for the simple reason that their immunity levels are low when they are on the treatment. So this is because of the disease as well as because of the treatment schedule they are on, their immunity level will be low. Hence, they cannot handle the infections in a way a general population person can handle. So that is definitely during this intensive phase of treatment, but later once they are out of treatment and their immune system is back to normal, they will be like any other normal person. So what are the difficulties we are facing during this COVID time? That is what we all have to, focus now. So the difficulties, one is like, first and foremost is reaching for treatment. So all the cases like who are on intensive phase for high risk solid tumors and acute leukemias, we cannot postpone the treatment. So they need to reach out to hospital for their treatment on time. So during COVID time, definitely a lot of our kids, they faced a problem for travel and all. But however, we are able to overcome the problem by sending them letters on time, so that they can show the letters while they are traveling to police or concerned authorities, and then reach to hospital on time for their treatment. So that is one thing. And other than that, not only cancer patients, also other hematological conditions, for example, aplastic anemias, that is bone marrow failure problems, where they require blood transfusion, where they can get into infections, they need to get the medical services on time. So those kids also have struggled during this COVID time, and at the same time transfusion dependent anemias also, like thalassemias, where they are transfusion dependent, they also had to face many problems in terms of travel as well as in terms of availability of the blood. So what are the problems in terms of availability of the blood? First and foremost is like, for donors, it is difficult to come out and then donate the blood in blood banks. So that was the initial concern. So because obviously the fear of acquiring COVID during this period for donors is one concern. And second thing is like, even the how to reach, and then what is the safety, they will be worried within the hospital. So they are another concern where they will be worried. But majority of the hospitals have ensured that they take all the precautions to maintain all the norms that are recommended, that is maintaining social distance as well as wearing masks and sanitizing the place thoroughly periodically wherever they sit, and then where the donation areas, blood donation areas, as well as hospital premises. So all these things, with the help of all these precautions, we are able to motivate the donors, of course through various methods like media and all. Slowly over a period of time, that problem has come down, and then more and more donors have started coming to donate to places. Once they come to know that they are taking all the precautions, they have started coming and they started donating the blood. And over a period of time, like, it has resolved. But to begin with, especially in the month of April or in May, had a lot of problems in getting the donors to hospital, as well as the availability of the blood. And even parents were worried about the safety of the blood. So we told them like there is no fear of any transmission of like infections like COVID and all through blood transfusion. So with that, they got reassured, and then they went ahead with the transfusions, especially for transfusion dependent anemias and all, where they were like really worried about taking the transfusions or traveling and all. But with reassurance through various methods, like through social organizations, media, doctors, and other supportive team, they are able to overcome this fear. Now slowly that problem is settling down. However, still, like, that is needs better awareness to go ahead and motivate the people more to donate blood products to blood banks, and to believe in the safety of the areas. And that is like, they take precautions from your side and look at the precautions taken by the hospital in the donation areas and all. Then we can go ahead and donate the blood, so that we know that there are many people who are in need of transfusions, take whether they are cancer patients or transfusion dependent anemias, or even the aplastic anemias, that is bone marrow problem failure problem. So all they need blood products. And of course, other than our population, that is hematology, oncology, the other categories they require are like definitely post accidents, gynecology patients, they also require transfusion. So that is another aspect what we have to remember, and then act accordingly. So these are the problems what we face, but slowly they are settling down. Overall, to conclude, pediatric cancers are curable provided they get recognized early, and then they picked up early and treat and we are starting treatment according to proper risk stratification, and if we provide good supportive care, they are very well curable. So that is what we want to go ahead and stress at the end. Thank you all. So, so I think there are no questions. Okay, there is a question saying, will the child's growth and development get affected with the cancer treatment? So the precise answer is like no. As long as there are no major side effects, which are very rare to happen during the treatment, so you don't get any problems with the growth and development of the child. So however, there are certain conditions where, like if you require high risk cases, CNS positive cases where you require radiation, there may be some impact on the development. However, for majority of the cases, there will not be any problem with the growth and development. So any other questions? So other aspects what most of the people are, I mean they ask in general are like stem cell transplant. So stem cell transplantation, if we talk about stem cell transplantation, nowadays that word is there in the general public as a common buzz. So if we look at stem cell transplantation, when it is required and how to do that, stem cell transplantation is usually used in pediatric cases, that is in children, in certain situations. What are those situations? In high risk cancers that are where we expect that it is not just curable with the chemotherapy. So in those cases we use stem cell transplantation. Other than that, transfusion dependent anemias like thalassemia and other anemias where there is a steady transfusion dependency, and other than that, bone marrow failure problems like aplastic anemia and certain metabolic disorders, and the conditions like immunodeficiencies, genetic conditions like immunodeficiencies. So there are a lot of conditions like that where stem cell transplantation is curable in these children. So stem cell transplantation is nothing but for all these things. Before, for acute leukemias, for example, if you take, disease should be under control before you transplant them. So for which we would have pre-treated them with the chemotherapy and bring down the disease under control. Once we get the disease under control, then we plan the transplant in advance. So transplantation is stem cell transplantation is mainly two types: autologous, allogenic. In autologous stem cell transplant, you use your own cells, you use your own stem cells as a rescue. So this mainly applies for your solid tumors, advanced stage solid tumors. To cure that, we use the autologous stem cell transplantation, whereas allogenic, that is using either your sibling or matched related donors, that is parents or matched unrelated donors, or sometimes even if their parents are not matched, we go ahead where there is a definite need of going ahead with the immediate transplant where it is only curable with the transplant. So there we go ahead even if it is not a full match, that is called as haplotransplant. So in allogenic, whether it is sibling, unrelated or haplo, so you use the stem cells from the other sources, not your own. So and in those are mainly used for your acute high risk leukemias, metabolic conditions, transfusion dependent anemias, aplastic anemias, immunodeficiencies. All those require allogenic transplantation. And so nowadays we know that based on the type of match what we get and then condition of the child, stem cell transplantation has very good success rate. So if anybody has questions related to that, we can even answer that. Can you check with them? Can you enter live video? And for stem cell transplantation, we have to prepare the recipient, and we need to check donor, initially HLA typing of both donor and recipient. Later we have to do certain tests like biochemical tests, serology tests and all those, to know the fitness of the donor as well as recipient, and we go ahead with the transplantation.
Already ma'am has
I think if there are no more questions, we can end this live session. At this point of time, the main take-home message is pediatric cancers are well curable. We should not get away with the idea that cancers are not curable. So they are well curable, and we have to recognize them on time and then treat them appropriately. Thank you.
end this.